T.O.L Studios, and today we're going to look at just kind of touching up on the last video, what we had spoke about, and that was taking all the previous little positions we learned, like what you learned here. And again, don't do these super fast. I'm trying to save on time. Then we learned this one, and then we learned this one. And those of you that don't, like maybe you're seeing this video for the first time, make sure you go back to the previous ones if you don't know those. Again, those of you that don't still get that that's A, B, C. Don't try to do it fast, see it slow. Remember, I'm doing it a little quick at times just to save on time so I can show you more things. So anyway, we learned that one, then we learned another one, and we kind of got up here finally to that 12th fret. The last video I started talking about, another thing I talked about in the previous video was what a major scale was. And we talked about how that comes from knowing that it's a whole step, and a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half. And I was talking about how we started from a C note, then we went to D, and I kind of used the second string as a reference, and there's your whole step. That's why we skipped this one. So C to D, whole step, D to E, whole step, E to F, half step. Then we're going to do 3 whole steps, so F to G is a whole step, G to A is a whole step, A to B is a whole step, and then we finish with B to C. Or again, first note C, second note D, whole step, second note to the third note, whole step, E to F. Your third to fourth note, half step, 4 to 5, F to G, whole step, G to A. You're at 5 to 6, whole step, 6 to 7, A to B, whole step, finish with 7 to 1, B to C, half step. So again, whole step, half, whole, half. Then what we were talking about, that's a major scale, just going down. I just happened to pick the second string mainly because it started down here and I knew that'd be easier to see it start here. Then what I started doing in the lesson, last one, was talking about how we know what these notes tune to, the E, A, D, G, B, and the E string. And I was talking about how we take these patterns that you'd learned, and then this one, and all those, and now I'm giving them names, and I was using numbers. And what we were talking about was if this one on the 6th string, we're kind of moving as these patterns go down, the note that we start that pattern with, we're basing it off that 6th string and then seeing what it fits to that C scale that I just showed you. So E is actually going to be, if that's C, D, this is an E. E is the third note because C, 1, D, 2, E, 3. So since E and then the 4th note would be F, and they're right next to each other, when you see that on the 6th string, we tune that to an E. So that's going to be your 3rd and your 4th note. That's why I was saying we're going to take this set of notes that you learned. Okay? All those notes in that pattern, which I'm telling you is the key of C major, and I'll show you this a little better in a second. I'm saying we're going to call that, yes, it is C major scale, but at this position, that shape that you learned, since it starts on the E note, it's starting on the 3rd note of the C scale. So this is, and since these are next to each other, E and F, this is pattern 3-4 in the C scale. Now, so you can hear this, if I walk my way up to that note, 6th string E, F, G, A, B, C. Now, I'm going to stay here for a minute. I'm going to start on this note and play the rest of the notes that we learned in this pattern, but I'm going to stop on this note, and you're going to hear a C scale. It's just not going to look like this now on one string. So this is C, 4th string open is D, there's your E, your F, open 3rd string G, A, B, C. So if I play that again, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That is the same thing I was showing you here, C, D, E. just these notes are higher, and I just happen to be doing it down one string, but it makes that same sound. Or again, a lot of you know do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. Same thing. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. So what's weird about this and why it sounds funny, if this is E and it's a third note, that's what you're doing. If I'm saying this is do, re, mi, you're starting on, if you want to say it that way, mi. Okay, I'm not real good at doing it that way. I'd like to see it, I'm just taking the third note of the scale, and that's what I'm starting on. So E is the third note, F's the fourth, pattern 3-4. This next pattern we started here on the G, so G is going to be the fifth note of the C scale. That's why we called this pattern 5. Okay, and again I didn't call it 5-6 because that G to A is not a half step, it's a whole step. So it's only the notes that go right next to each other that are going to get the two sets of numbers. Now, also, I'm still saying this is the C scale. You just saw me a minute ago go like this. Okay, if I do that same kind of thing over here, that's got to be C, and we should know that because A, fifth string open, B, C. But you should know it because I just said it was when I just did this. The only thing different, I just got a different finger on it. And I know that's confusing sometimes, but I'm on the same note. So if I do C to C, again that's me C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I'll teach this in another video, but that's actually the exact same notes. It's just two ways of playing the same thing. So I'll explain that more later because I don't want to get too complicated, but my point, this pattern you learned would be pattern 5 because that's G, so 5 is G, A is 6, B is 7, back to C. Okay, so it is a C scale, it just sounds funny because you're starting on the fifth note of it if you happen to start on that. And you do want to because I want you to memorize these. Okay, so that's still a C scale, that's just pattern 5. So if we go up to the next note, that's A. A is going to be the sixth note because we have C, D, E, F, G, A. So A is the sixth note. And again, I'm not going to call it 6, 7 because A and B aren't next to each other. They're a whole step. So we just call this pattern 6. And again, I'm basing it off the third or the E string. E is the third note. F's the fourth note. Fifth note is G. Sixth note is A, and that's referring to the C scale. So then when you learn this pattern, even though I'm saying that's a C scale, I'm telling you that that's basically pattern 6, that shape. Now again, if I found a C note, and I'm going to tell you it's right here, if you're like, how does he do that? Because again, you should know if that's A, whole step up to B, C. Now, remember how I just did this in this pattern, and I went from C to C, and again I'm saying it's pattern 3-4, all the notes in the C scale, because we said it's 3-4 because of, again, the open note E being the third note of that C scale. Then I just did the same thing here in pattern 5 and showed you how to C of the C scale. So here in pattern 6, if I start on C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And again, I'll explain this in another video. That's the exact same thing. That's one way I can play these notes. I can also play it this way. Those are the same notes. If I played those on a piano, those are the exact same notes. So are these. They all look different. They're different frets. This used some open notes. This didn't have any open notes. This started with the pinky. C was here. But see, that C note I'll teach you later is the same note as this. We'll get into this more on the next video. But okay, so again, pattern 6 because A is the 6th note. So if I go up to the B, B is the 7th note, and C is the first note, and that's a half step. So that's why we're going to call this pattern 7 and 1. Again, I'm still in a C scale. Okay, but that gives me the C note here and the B there, 7, 1. So pattern 7, 1 in the C scale. Now, again, if I started on a C note, which is on the 8th fret, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Believe it or not, that's the exact same notes as what I just showed you a minute ago. And that's the same notes as I was showing you. It gets confusing, that's why I want to do this more in another lesson. But as long as you can kind of hear this, then also you can start connecting these, which gets more confusing. You can take part of pattern 5 and part of pattern 6. That's the same notes too. And see, when you learn that, like I did, seeing this only as 3rd fret, 5th fret, if you don't see that as C, D, E, you won't catch this with C, D, E. And that's why I'm trying to tell you, you should know your letters. So take your time to learn those patterns. But again, to wrap this lesson up, we're taking the patterns, and why I call that 3-4 is because everything's based off the 6th string and it's based off the C major scale. So this string tunes to the 3rd note of the C scale, and since F's next to it, this is pattern 3-4. Since we're on the G, next one, that's 5th note of the C scale, that's why it's pattern 5. And then 6 because of A. Again, do these slower. I'm just kind of make sure we save time here. The B to the C, 7, 1. And then this would be D, so that's going to be pattern 2 because D is the 2nd note of the C scale. And again, I didn't call it 2, 3 because that's a whole step. So this is pattern 2. And again, D is the 2nd note of the C scale. Okay, so again, same thing. If I know that's a D, E. Now I'll admit, this won't be the same notes I just showed you where I said you can play it here and you play it here. This is where it gets a little different. I'll explain this more later. But it'll be a little higher to see this scale. But if I'm on a D, E, F, G, A, B, C. This C isn't going to be the same C as that one or that one. And I'll get into this more later. So we're the same kind of idea. If this is a C, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. So those are still the same scale. It's just, again, we're starting on that D note on the 10th fret, which that's why we're calling this pattern 2. Then we finish here at the 12th fret because we're on E again, and since F goes next to it, we're back on pattern 3 and 4. And that would have been that last one I taught you. Or sorry, when I did this one. See, and I just, again, knowing that that's B, that's why I went ahead and ended on a C. That way you can kind of tell I'm in a C scale. Then I went up to that next one I'm saying. If I go E, F, pattern 3 and 4, G is going to be 5, so that's why I'm back to what I did down here. Frets just smaller, and those are higher notes. Then again, I keep talking about where if these notes are hard to play, you can learn you can play them on this string. When I kind of keep explaining this weird stuff I'm doing today, taking the notes, the C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, and then saying these are the same, C, D, E, F. When I explain that a little bit better, then that'll kind of make sense of everything else I'm kind of talking about here, why you can go in different directions and so forth. So just want to kind of take one more lesson just to reinforce again that I was taking the C scale knowledge, and that comes again from the whole step, half, whole, half. Knowing that the 6th string tunes to E, which is the 3rd note of that C scale, and then that's how I'm naming each one of these patterns. With the first one because of E and F. The next pattern we learned was G, and I'm not saying pattern 5, 6 because it's whole step. So it's only the notes that go next to each other. That's why they get double numbers. That's going to be 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. take some time and soak that in, and then I'll start off the next lesson just kind of getting back into it. But the biggest thing I'm going to show you on the next one is start introducing like why we have a key of G major and a key of D major and so forth. There's odd ones that are called flat keys, and I'll get into that to kind of explain that a little better. Thanks for watching T.O.L Studios, and have some fun.